A very good morning to all the students of class 7. My name is Prerna and I'm your English teacher. And today, from your English book Skyline, we are going to read chapter number 4. So, let us start reading this chapter. Here we go. This is chapter number 4 and the name of the chapter is Literary Delight. So, let us find out what this chapter is about. The given story is an extract from The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, written by Mark Twain. Let us read the story to know how Tom ran away from home with his friends and returned home. So this is a very interesting novel, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and it is written by Mark Twain. Now this chapter is about one of the incidents talking about that how naughty Tom was and how he decided to run away from home with his friends. So let us find out that why he decided to run away with his friends and how or why he decided to return home. Tom was very sad and lonely. Nobody loved him. He made up his mind to run away from the home and be a pirate. So along with Joe Harper and Huckleberry Finn, he decided to go to Jackson's Island, which was 3 miles below St. Petersburg. As decided about the midnight, Tom came to the meeting place and gave a low whistle. So now Tom, he thought that there's no one who loves me, so I'm going to run away from my house. And he thought that, rather than running alone, rather than eloping alone, let me also take 2 of my friends and let all of us become pirates. So what is a pirate? It's a person who attacks and robs ships at sea. And who were these 2 friends? These were Joey Harper and Huckleberry Finn. So Tom decided that along with my 2 friends, I am going to run away because there's no one who loves me. And they met at midnight. A voice said, "Who goes there?" Tom Sawyer, the black pirate. "Name your names." Huck Finn, the red-handed, and Joey Harper, the terror of the seas. "Good, give the sign." 2 low voices and said the same awful word, "Blood." So now these 3 friends, they had made an entire plan that we are going to run away and we are going to go to Jackson's Island so that we can be pirates. What happened next? Then Tom went to join his friends. They found a boat and loaded the food they had stolen in it. Soon they were in the middle of the river on their way to Jackson's Island. So now these 3 boys, they even got into a boat that would take them to Jackson's Island. At 2 o'clock in the morning, they landed on the shore. A fire was lit and soon they were cooking some bacon for their supper. When they had eaten all they could, they lay down on the grass and smoked their pipes. Then the trio went off to sleep. Trio refers to the 3 friends, that is Tom, Joey Harper, and Huckleberry Finn. When Tom woke up the next morning, he wondered where he was. He sat up and rubbed his eyes and looked around. Then he remembered. He woke up the others and in a minute they were tumbling over each other in the river. So now these 3 boys, they were in the river in a boat. After breakfast, they lay under the trees to talk. Suddenly they heard a loud bang from down the river. It did not take the young pirates long to guess that the people in the ferry were shooting cannon over the water to locate the bodies of the 3 boys themselves. The very fact that their folk were missing them gladdened the boys. So now when the boys realized that our people are missing us, they were really happy. It was good to be a pirate after all. As night came on, the ferry went back up the river and the pirates made their way once more to the camp. So this entire idea of being a pirate, going to Jackson's Island, staying in the boat, this really made all the three boys very excited. So it really didn't bother them that our family is looking for us, and they would be all very worried. All these boys wanted to do was to become a pirate and enjoy themselves, because they thought that it was a good idea. The stars came out, that is, now the night came, and Huck began to feel sleepy. Soon he was snoring. Joey followed next. Tom lay upon his elbow for some time, watching the other two. So Tom was sitting like this, and he was just watching that how these two boys, how Joey and Finn, they both are just busy sleeping. At last he got up quietly and wrote a message for Joey and Huck on a piece of thin white wood with a white chalk. Then he crept softly into the trees and began to run towards the river. A few minutes later, he was swimming through the dark water to the bank on the other side. At last, he got there, and pulling himself out, he found that he was near the village. Racing through the lonely lanes, it was not long before he reached his aunt's back fence. So now Tom, because he had started missing his family, he went inside the water, and he went towards the village, and he reached his aunt's the backyard. He reached his aunt's the backyard of her house. He climbed over and looked in at the sitting room window, for a light was burning there. There sat Aunt Polly, Sid, his cousin Mary, and Joy Harper's mother, all together talking. So you can see that this is Tom's aunt, and this is Aunt Polly, and this is Joy Harper's mother, and these are Tom's cousins, that is Mary, and that is Sid. Tom went to the door, turned the handle very gently, and pushed it open and squeezed through on his knees. So now Tom, he entered the house without letting anyone come to know about it. What makes the candle blow like that? Said Aunt Polly. Tom hurried up. Why, that door is open, I think. Go along and shut it, Sid. Tom got under the bed just in time. He lay there for a bit and then crept to where he could almost touch his aunt's foot. But as I was saying, said Aunt Polly, he wasn't really bad. He never did any harm. Sometimes he was rather wild, but he was the best boy that ever was. And she began to cry. Now Aunt Polly, because she was missing Tom, and she said that he wasn't a bad boy at heart. He never intended to hurt someone. So while talking about Tom, while thinking about him, she began to cry. She became very emotional. It was the same with Joey, said Mrs. Harper. So now Joey's mother was also missing him. He was as kind as he could be, and bless me, to think I went and whipped him for taking that cream, when all the time I had thrown it out myself because it had gone bad. And I shall never see him again in this world. Never, never. Poor boy. And Mrs. Harper burst into tears. So Joey's mother also, when she was talking about her son, she became very emotional, and she had that uncontrollable tears. I hope Tom's better off where he is, said Sid. But if he had been better in some ways. Sid, said Aunt Polly, not a word against my Tom. Now that he's gone, God will take care of him. By this time, Tom was crying quietly to himself, but he went on listening. So Tom, who thought that no one loved him, also felt bad of the fact that I am trying to fool my family, and look at my family. My entire family is worried about me. They all are crying because they cannot just see me around. So they're crying because they're feeling my absence. They're feeling really bad that I am gone. He heard them say that this was Wednesday night. If the boys were still missing on Saturday, prayers would be said for them in the church. So now the family decided that by Sunday, if we do not find the boys, then we'll have to consider them as gone forever. And we'll have to read the prayers in their name in the church. Soon Mrs. Harper said good night and turned to go. Sid and Mary went off still crying, and Aunt Polly knelt down and prayed for Tom before she got into bed. At last she fell asleep. Tom stood up and looked down at her, feeling very sorry for what he had done. He bent over and kissed his aunt and then quietly left the room, closing the door behind him. It was daylight when he got back to the island. He went up to the camp where the other boys were overjoyed to see him. So now Tom, he went back to the island to meet his friends Joey and Finn. The gang had a fine time during the next 2 days. Now, even knowing the fact that family members are missing us, still Tom decided that let me enjoy a few more days with my friends. They went swimming in the river, and sometimes they got out their marbles and played with them. But by Friday morning, they were not quite so happy. They began to look across the wide river to the village on the other side. Now, for 2-3 days, the boys had a time of their lifetime. They really enjoyed, no one to scold us, no one to tell us what to do and what not to do. But now, by Friday, even the boys had started missing their families. Joey was feeling very bad, very sad because he wanted to go home. Huck was beginning to feel sorry for himself too. Tom did not know what to do. He had a secret, but he was not ready to tell it yet. And what was the secret? The secret was that Tom had gone back home and he had seen that all the family members really wanted these boys to come back. He persuaded them to stay back, but when Tom realized that Joey and Huck had all their minds set on leaving for the village, he led them on his secret. When he had done, they clapped their hands and agreed not to go back. All the people in the little town of St. Petersburg were very sad. The next afternoon, prayers had been said that morning for the missing boys. When Sunday came, the bells began to ring. The church had never been so full before. The minister started to speak about the poor dead boys. Now the families thought that boys are dead and they are gone forever. He said how sweet and good they were and how much they were missed. He went on till all the people were crying. There was a little noise at the back of the church, but nobody noticed it. A minute later, the door was softly opened and the minister looked up and stood amazed. First, one and then other pair of eyes followed the ministers, and then everybody rose and started while the three dead boys came marching on. Tom in the lead, Joey next, and Huck in his long rags behind. Rags means, torn clothes in a very terrible condition. Aunt Polly, Mary, and the Harpers threw their arms around the missing boys and covered them with kisses. Then the minister shouted at the top of his voice, "Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Sing and put your hearts into it." And they did. At breakfast on Monday morning, Aunt Polly and Mary were very loving to Tom. As they were talking, Aunt Polly said, "Well, I don't say it wasn't a fine joke, Tom, to make us all unhappy while you boys were having a good time. But if you could come over on a log, you could have come over and told me that you weren't dead." I don't know. It would have spoiled everything. "Tom, I hope you love me at least that much," said Aunt Polly. "Now, Auntie, I do love you," said Tom. "I wish now I had thought, but I dreamed about you anyway. That's something, ain't it?" Aunt Polly was delighted. She was really happy. I forgive you just everything. Here is a big apple and I've been saving for you if you were found again. Now go along to school. I am so glad that I've got you back. So look at this boy who's very fickle minded. He decides to leave his family. When he comes back, he knows that his family loves him so much, but he still goes back to the island with his friends. Now remember one thing, even if you feel that your family doesn't love you, that's a wrong feeling, that's a wrong mindset that you have. Your family always love you, and don't be naughty like this boy Tom Sawyer, because this boy maybe was able to manage to come back home, but never ever play a trick on someone which can prove harmful for you or for the other person. But yes, what you can do is you can still read this novel, because it's very interesting, how this little boy who does something or the other notorious. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed reading the chapter.